Hello and welcome back to Movie Mess 101. It is I, Tom Button, here again. Um, After last week, I thought I should talk about it. I did give you guys some inkling that I was going to do another video pretty soon after I watched it again. But yes, this is going to be a spoiler-filled video for the television series Arcane. Um, Arcane, as you know from my previous video, I just love and adore. It's my favorite TV series of 2021, no question. But I wanted to do a little bit of a spoiler video on it. I'm not going to go for it beat by beat or like story by story. So we're just going to keep it we're going to keep it fairly tame because it goes in many different directions, focuses on a lot of characters. But we're just going to focus on the main story beats and the main characters and make sure that I get sort of everything. I probably won't get everything in this video. I might have to make a second video explaining sort of a little bit more about other characters and their stories. But for the most part, we're going to do a spoiler-filled review and see how it goes. We're just going to get right into it because I don't want to be preamble because this might go on for quite a while, and I don't want that to happen because I don't want it to be too long. But we're going to see how long it gets up to. But yeah, so what I loved about this or the first episode was how it grabbed you from moment one. In moment one, we see a decimated bridge with our main characters, Violet and Powder, who are young kids, strolling, like not really strolling, but sort of moving through this fire, this sort of smoke, this desolation almost of just like death and destruction on this bridge. And they sort of like they as Powder's singing a song, it's like very, very eerie, very sort of very kind of disturbing. And halfway on the bridge, they see the bodies of their dead parents, which is quite a stark image to set this off as. And the sequence goes on, and they see Vander, who is a resistance leader from the underground city of Zorn, and he sees them and basically decides to take them under his wing and sort of like protect them from the enforcers who he was battling on that bridge. You saw sort of shadows of enforcers who are basically the police of Piltover, just killing sort of anybody who dared cross the bridge. And it's a very, very stark, very powerful beginning. Like it's just like it's the first sequence of the show, which is very, very impactful and sort of and quite disturbing. But we sort of flash forward a little bit after that, and to a lighter tone. The kids have sort of grown up, and there's so Vi and Powder are there alongside a few mates, Clanger and Milo, and they are basically in Piltover to kind of steal some equipment from somebody. They don't know who they're stealing from, but they got a tip from their friend Little Man, also known as Echo, about this sort of job, and so they go to steal some scientific equipment. And it's it doesn't go well. So they get into the apartment of this apartment is, and it's yeah, it does. It's so they start sort of stealing. Powder makes their way into a room and sort of opens up a box filled with these arcane crystals, like these little crystals, and when sort of they are discovered, they try and make a break for it, but Powder drops one of the crystals and the whole apartment explodes, causing sort of massive damage to sort of like the side of the building, and sort of the side of the building sort of starts to crumble down. And so they have to make a quick getaway. They run from the enforcers through the streets, and sort of try to sort of make it safely back into the Undercity, by via a sewage system. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of like it's like the tone of it is kind of light, kind of sort of adventurous. I was kind of thinking, is this going to be more kiddie friendly? Is this going to be more of a sort of like young adult kind of thing? Um, but but it really sort of wasn't. There was kind of sort of a lot to go to, and so we see this Undercity for the first time. They go back to Vander, who owns a bar called the Last Drop, and they sort of live in this place, and sort of Vander doesn't keep but sort of cares for these children in this bar, and they kind of get hassled a little bit by this other sort of group who are kind of following them. Like, you don't know where, like, who they are or like what they've been, but they have like some loot with them, and they get into a scrap. There's the first fight of the series, and Vi tosses the equipment to Powder, who sort of runs away and is chased down by another thug, and is cornered. So she has to sort of like toss the loot away and to escape. Basically, that's that. So I'm going through this like mega quickly because there is a lot to explain. So like that's basically like the first episode, and a little bit at the last moment we're introduced to our villain Silco, who is basically this industrialist living sort of like underneath or in this secret lair in the Undercity, and he's experimented with like a drug, which he uses on animals. It's basically like makes you sort of like 10 times stronger, but it also sort of messes with your mind and sort of creates like monsters basically. And he tests it on a rat, which kills a cat, which is pretty strong. And so you discover in the second episode that one of the guys who was one of the leader of the gang that got beat up, he was following them to see where they were, so he could go back to Silco to explain to them that we know where they are. We know that they're sort of where Vander is, and sort of like what's going on. Vander is this very he's kind of like a nice person. He was a resistance leader, but he's kind of given all that up in favor of protecting these kids, and sort of that's what he kind of does now. He doesn't really like getting into battles anymore, and sort of he's very sort of like calm and wants to keep the peace no matter what. And that's especially sort of in the second episodes. Two enforcers come into the bar and say that a building was blown up and somebody has to be taken in, somebody has to pay for that. And Vander is like, I might know who did it, but I'm not going to tell you who did it. But if I do have any information, I'll let you know. Yeah, I mean, he and sort of Vi have this conversation about like saying that you blew a building up. You didn't have to do that, but you've painted a target on your back now, and sort of you can't really be. He can protect them, but like it's going to be hard if enforcers are going to be just showing up all the time to the bar. Yeah, so so he has deals with the police, and which only one person, Echo, hears about this, and sort of doesn't really tell the other group about his deal until like quite late on. Silco has this dude who is his first kind of like test subject, and it goes like all right for him because it's like this little liquid that he drinks, and he gets all monstrous and basically goes takes him out on sort of and takes him out on a rampage. So the first two episodes are set up, interesting setup, because you have these characters, they're sort of well defined, that like the kids are sort of their own personalities, and you have that, you know who the villain is, you know sort of like what's going on, you think that you know what's going on, but when it gets a bit more sort of like topsy-turvy with the enforcers and their deal with Vander, it sort of like makes it more interesting and makes the world feel more alive. But it's the third episode where things get really crazy. And it's not and it's kind of shocking, because you think that it's going to go one way, and it doesn't. So in the third episode, basically, Vi hears about Vander's plan or deal with the police, and so she decides, because their group are the ones that done it, and Vander had talked to her about sort of responsibility, that she's going to give herself up. You think that like they're gonna be coming down to snatch her away, but actually Vander comes in the opening of the third episode, and basically sort of like grabs Vi and sort of hauls her downstairs, so he would be the one to take the blame. And he goes outside, meets with the police, but something happens, something really violent happens, which includes Silco's monster, and people die. Like the main officer who was with them, like she dies, like really, like quite quickly on. I was like, oh shit, that's not. I thought they were going to develop these characters more, but dead, I suppose. And that was really shocking. That was like third episode in. So one of the officers, the remaining officer, Marcus, is basically kind of like a sniveling kind of like weasel, and because of like the deal, like because of he has a deal with Silco, and Silco kind of shows him his lair, and he will basically protect him. So this whole stuff goes down. Vander is dragged off by Silco's monster, and Marcus, this officer, is bumped off. He's given some money and told to sort of just like go away. And it's kind of kind of political, kind of like he's in his pocket. He's in Silco's pocket, and he doesn't really have much to do in the rest of the episode. So Vander is taken, and the others have to go and get him back, other than Powder. Vi sees all this through the window, and when the gang comes back, they say that they're going with her to save him, but she doesn't let Powder go with her because it's going to be too dangerous, and she can't lose her sister, and she's quite young. And you get this great scene when Powder's alone, and sort of like she's crying. She's like, I really want to help. She's crying and sort of kind of like screaming, and sort of like working on this like toy sort of like symbol monkey, and she discovers that she can help them by basically putting one of the crystals into the symbol banging monkey and helping them. But that scene is really sort of powerful, and really kind of sets a mood for like Powder's insecurities. Even as a very young person, she's kind of timid and kind of shy, but wants to help, but because of like Vi and sort of her sort of like rules, and kind of sets her over the edge, but she thinks that she can help. So the rest of the crew get to Silco's hideout and find Vander, not before Silco finds them. and Vi has to beat some folks down. She goes like one-on-one with like 5 guys and sort of like beats them all, whilst Milo and Clanger try and help Vander escape from like this sort of torture, because he was going to be forcibly turned into a monster. And so you see the sort of the rescue attempt. You see sort of Vi sort of beating up the other goons, including one. She's a side character, but the character of Savika, who basically was with Vander in the beginning, but she comes at him in the beginning episodes and said that you're weak because of your inaction to sort out Piltover. And yeah, and all of that. So on the other sort of side, you have in Piltover, you have Jace. I know this is kind of sort of strange to segue into another character specifically, but I do have to sort of talk about this character, Jace, who is a scientist. His apartment was the one that they were robbing, that Vi and the gang were robbing for equipment, and is caught up in the explosion. And after the explosion, the police come and find out that he has like prohibited items. So he has to go before the council, which is which is basically Piltover's government, and basically testify as to why he had them. And he has all these equations on the boards, and he basically sort of like, his motive is to basically harness magic through technology. That's his dream. That's what he wants, and he wants to create technology with magic to make the world a better place. That's his main objective. But he's brought in by the council, and is kind of stripped of his time at the academy. He's an academy student, so he is stripped of that and kind of has nowhere else to go, and kind of as he sort of loses hope and sort of loses all sense of himself now that he's not sort of allowed to continue on with his magic, but or his experiments. But one person is very intrigued by these experiments, and that is Victor, who is another scientist who's like the academy dean's assistant, who is very intrigued with what Jace has to say and his experiments. And so they have a good meeting on as Jace is about to kill himself, which is like really morbid, but he stops him. Victor stops Jace from ending it all, and he wants to come in with him and sort of and wants to basically help him achieve his dream of blending science and magic together. And sort of we see them breaking into the council, where all of the prohibited equipment is, so they can sort of complete their studies, which actually kind of work. They break in and they're sort of like tinkering around and sort of do all these like mad experiments, and then sort of when they crack it, there's a big explosion which like smashes the windows, and then afterwards like the sort of explosion kind of reverses, and that's just like crazy. I mean, they don't really know what the power of the arcane, like this magic is, but like they think that they can crack it. So you have a lot of stories going on, Vi and sort of her group and Vander, and then you have the Jason Victor trying to figure out this arcane and how it works. Back to episode 3, as Vander and sort of they are trying to escape, Powder unbeknownst to them, sort of tries to come to the rescue. And this is where it gets sad. And so they, the guy who Silco has turns back into a monster and sort of goes after Vi, and you don't really see her. They don't really see Powder as she sort of like climbs up the building and puts like 3 crystals into this symbol monkey and sort of winds it and then sets it off. You didn't know what was happening. Like I thought that it's gonna go off, but they're gonna be safe and they're gonna get out. That doesn't happen. That the opposite happens. So when sort of she winds it up and the monster is trying to get into where they're escaping, the monkey goes off and the symbols slam against the crystal, creating this massive explosion, which blows Powder off of her perch and basically kills, is responsible for the death of Clanger and Milo. Milo gets like a pipe through the chest, and then they are crushed by rubble. So everything at that moment, I was like, no, this is not how it's going to do. They're not going to kill off two main characters, it seems, in the 3rd episode. So everybody is screwed. Vi is severely injured, and Vander is injured as well. But he manages to get up and sort of beat the snot out of the last of the henchmen that Silco has. So Silco has brought Vander because they have a very tumultuous relationship. You find out that Silco was this very big idealist, kind of almost extremist of how he wanted to create this independent nation of Zorn, independent from Piltover, and sort of Vander was all for it, and then it was insinuated that he got really sort of violent and extreme. And so you see in flashbacks that Vander tried to kill him or drown him in a river. And it's done through this wonderful sort of monologue Silco has in the beginning of the episode, where it's like, have you ever wondered what it's like to drown? And sort of it flashes back to sort of him kind of thrashing through his life against Vander, and sort of you don't know all about that, but then when Vander and Silco start to talk as he's being sort of strapped down, you kind of understand not necessarily where Silco's coming from because he's a psychopath, but like you can kind of understand the maybe friendship that they had and how it was sort of like tarnished, and Vander was very regretful of how he left Silco. Silco is now scarred because toxins from the river got into his system, and like he's blind in one eye, and sort of like the toxins like grayed his skin because of Vander, because he tried to drown him. So there's a lot of that sort of like political stuff going on in the Undercity as well as Piltover. But so yeah, I'm kind of going all over the place, but it kind of does go all over the place. But it uses the amazing the story like editing to make it all work. So after the explosion, Clanger and Milo are dead. Vander is sort of on his last legs, and as he goes for Silco, he goes to choke him again, and it flashes back to his regret of trying to kill him in the first place, which allows Silco the chance to stab him and send him over the edge of this bridge that they're on. Vander doesn't die, but he crashes into a load of this liquid, this purple liquid, takes it, becomes a monster, And at first he wants to go after Silco, but he sees Vi, who is basically on her last legs, trying to escape. And he actually goes after her and crashes through the window and to the floor, protecting her, letting Silco escape. Um, this is where the real sort of like stuff comes in, like the real emotion. So Vanda dies, which leaves Vi kind of like traumatized and distraught. Basically, she sort of bursts into tears and sort of like is very is it's very sad. But the saddest part is when Powder appears behind her, and Vi doesn't know what started the explosion until um, until Powder says that the monkey bomb like finally worked. Like, and she was like, "You did this? You caused this explosion?" And you can kind of see like that there's a problem here. Powder sees Vanda's dead body on the floor, and it's like basically sort of like starts trembling and sort of starts kind of like shaking, and like she didn't mean to do it. She didn't sort of mean to help, well, not to help, but she says that I only tried to help. And Vi comes at her and says that this is all your fault, and sort of she hits her like quite violently, and she and Powder begs, why did you like leave me there? Why did you leave me? And Vi says, because you're a jinx, and everything that you do kind of messes things up, and all of that sort of stuff, which leaves her like a quivering wreck. Like the acting here, I forget her name. She was quite young when she did Powder, when she voiced her, Mia Sinclair something. But her performance, her delivery of the lines as she's basically in tears, like on the ground, like crying her eyes out. It's just like, oh, it's just really sad. And it's really painful. So Vi kind of like leaves her on her own, and and Powder's begging her to come back and crying and screaming. Vi leaves her, and then out of nowhere, Silco approaches and asks Powder where her sister's gone, because Vi has Vi has sort of like disappeared. Um, and sort of Powder looks at him and basically collapses into his arms, and because like he's the only person that's there, and she has all this. Everybody else is dead, so the she's the only one the Silco is the only one that Powder like clings to, um, basically because she wants that attention. Well, she doesn't want the attention. She wants like acknowledgement. She wants that um, parental figure. And so Silco was like the main guy. And Silco is actually, for a villain, is very understanding of this. He's kind of sort of like gone through similar stuff and is very accommodating to Powder, and actually sort of like hugs her back and tells her that we'll show them all. Vi realizes that Silco is there, so she starts to go after him, but Marcus, one of the enforcer, comes out of nowhere, chloroforms her, and sort of drags her back into the shadows. And that is basically the end of the third episode. I'm not sure how long this will sort of go on for, but I might do 3 episodes of this. But anyway, that's the end of the first act. And after the first act, especially after the episode 3 ending, I was just aghast. I was just absolutely blown away by what this is done. And I'm not even finished in Jason Victor's sort of storyline. They sort of like do their experiments and it works. They sort of crack it, and one of the council members, Mel, who is very, very high up, comes in with the head of the council, Heimerdinger, who is very sort of very, very not dismissive of it, but like is kind of very, very surprised that they did it. And it's sort of all magical, and it's all a big surprise to them. And now this is proof that they can do it, that they can actually turn magic into like meld it with technology. And it's a really like nice scene that they're floating in the air and sort of like they're sort of like tossing about things, and it's kind of all blue and all sort of nice, which leads us sort of like kind of into the fourth episode, which has a massive time gap, which actually confused me at first, but I got into it fairly quickly. So the first act of Arcane is like some of the maddest like storytelling, some of the craziest stuff that like I've seen. Like it's not where I thought it would go at all, especially in the last few moments. The explosion and the aftermath is just, it's just shocking. It's just like when I first watched it, I was just like, there's no way that they're going to do this. There's no way that they're going to kill off two seemingly main characters, or three even. Vander's dead as well. And Powder is going to go and join the dark side with Silco. That was not what I was expecting at all. And it just, like when my jaw hit the floor like in those last moments. Excuse me. And watching it again for the second time, it really sort of hit home for me, because like the explosion happens and it's coming, but like that ending scene with Powder and Vi is just so devastating and so just sad. And then you kind of get, because you kind of know a little bit about Silco and sort of his sort of and Vander's betrayal, and you kind of you don't feel for him, but you feel for Powder, whose only recourse is Silco. That's the only one that she sees and clings onto, because she is very kind of she is very dependent on family, and all of her family have now abandoned her, Vi's abandoned her, or have died. Which is very, very sad. But like, yeah, like from the first episode to the third episode, I could not guess that was what it was going to lead into. I couldn't really believe it. So yeah, I think that I've kind of like rambled on. This was going to be a whole massive Arcane spoiler, but what I think I'll do now, and I think I think I'll split this into three parts, going through each act, because these were released in acts. So act one was this one, obviously, and then I'll release a few more videos talking about act two and act three, and sort of a little bit more about other characters as they're introduced in other arcs. But the main arc of this one was Vi, Powder, Silco introducing the villain, introducing the world. And I just wanted to do my best to kind of sort of like truncate all of that and sort of go through and do all of that. So what I'll do is, going forward, release two more videos, spoiler filled videos, and yeah, and I think that is the best way to go about it. I hope that this is all kind of very well, it's probably not it's probably not very not well organized, but just I hope that like I've broken it down a little bit more. And because I just want to talk about it, because I just want to talk to other people about it, and you know, talk to people and see what their opinions are. And I just thought that the first arc, the first act, set up the show perfectly, and and you know, the show going on from there, it just, there were so many parallels and so many sort of like other stories to take into account. And yeah, it's just all over the place. You get to learn about every single character, even side characters as well, who you don't really sort of see very often but have a big role to play. But yes, I think that this is going to end the first spoiler talk for Act 1 of Arcane. Hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have, just like going through all my thoughts and what I thought, and on the story, and all of that. So I'll record one tomorrow and probably the next day as well, just so that you guys can have a trilogy of spoiler videos, which is which is going to be very fun. I'll have a lot of fun discussing. But yeah, Act 1 was perfect from sort of like start to finish. It got me into the series, it got me into the world and the characters, and you know, where it went from there is just absolutely insane. But I'll keep that until tomorrow. Um, so I'll say thank you very much for watching. It's been me, Tom Button, and this has been Movie Mess 101. And yeah, thank you very much.